on the News Channel 5 network. This is MorningLine with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Monday. I hope you had a great weekend, and it's good to get the week started off here with a show where we can open up the phones and take your calls and talk about something fun like animals. How about that? We can talk about pets. The temperature's changing. We get into the summer months and all of that. There may be some specific things that you have questions about with your animal. If you're dealing with something with your cat or your bird or your dog, give us a call this morning for veterinarian Allison Fields. She is a monthly guest on this show. And it always seems like she leaves and then she's back before you know it, and it's always a breath of darn fresh air.
Thanks. Good to be here.
It is a breath of fresh air.
Thanks.
Always to see. Who doesn't love Allison? Raise your hand if you don't love Allison, because you love her. And it's nice to have you on.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Well, I don't know where to start. We'll open up the line, 737-7587. You're welcome to join if you have a question or comment. Just thought I'd bounce off you, what you see. You work in the clinic.
I think we need to start talking about the heat.
Oh, okay.
It's been super hot all of a sudden. Like we went from winter to summer. But heat stroke, so important. Dogs, everybody gets home from work and they go walk their dog. Mm-hmm. The temperature has dropped for us, so if it was 95 degrees, maybe by the time you're getting ready to walk your dog, it's like 85 degrees because it's not the heat of the day. But as that ambient temperature starts dropping, the pavement outside has been storing that heat all day. It starts releasing it, and your dog is this far above the pavement, so it's not only getting the heat from the ambient temperature, but it's getting the heat that's being released from the pavement.
Right.
So we just need to be aware of the fact that dogs can overheat much quicker than we do in these situations because our whole body isn't like parallel to the pavement.
Right.
And
we're not wearing a fur coat.
And we can sweat. They don't sweat.
Right.
So just be aware and pay attention. If your dog's used to walking every day at that time, then it's probably been acclimating with the temperature. But if all of a sudden it's nice out and you're like, oh, it's my favorite time of year, we're going to go run 3 miles, and your dog hasn't been doing it, you might want to do that early in the morning or late in the evening.
I remember when you told me that the first time about the ambient heat off the concrete or whatever. I hadn't thought of that, and that's a great point.
Yeah.
Would it help at all? I mean, if you do go out in the evening, maybe if you had a grassy meadow as opposed to on concrete,
sure.
That's a little better.
Sure.
That's a little better if you walk them out on the grass.
That doesn't release its heat back up.
Okay.
Pavement, asphalt, concrete, all of that will store heat, and then as soon as the temperature starts dropping in the air, it starts releasing heat.
I get you. If you would, just what are the symptoms for heat stroke? How will they start presenting?
Vomiting, diarrhea, tongue just absolutely hanging out as long as it can, really dark red or not its normal color, either darker or ashy, staggering, laying down, not wanting to continue, seizures, death. So it's serious stuff, I know, but can it happen real suddenly? Meaning, like, you might have the dog out there and, they want to play, but then all of a sudden, boom, it catches them because they don't, like our dog, I have a pug, Betty, and she loves chasing the ball. And we toss it, and sometimes we'll do it when it's warm out. Now, she's more acclimated as a pug, but still pugs. Right. And it's interesting, I stopped throwing the ball, but she still chased it around in the yard on her own. And later that night, she came in. Now, she may have eaten something, but she threw up. Now, she didn't exhibit any of the other things. It may have been just she had an upset tummy, but that was it. And we brought her in. We didn't let her go out again, cooled her off as bad. But that worried me. Yeah.
But can it hit suddenly like that?
It can. It's not sudden. Okay. However, our perception of it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. I'm missing all the signs I should see.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you're not paying attention. They just may not be as apparent as we would like.
Okay.
And pugs, bulldogs, Pekingese, Bostons, any smush face thing, we've talked about this before. They cool themselves by running air through their nose. They have all these little turbinates in there that have lots of blood vessels on them, and so as air passes over them, it cools their blood, which then goes elsewhere and cools the body. This is how they cool themselves.
That's interesting.
So if you have a German Shepherd or a Labrador or a Collie or something with a long nose, they have a lot more cooling mechanism than your smush facers.
Sure.
And so they have like this much room to cool. which is why
did
these
not
smush
know that.
facers overheat so much easier.
Gotcha.
And half the time they can't breathe through their nose, so they're breathing through their mouth, which means
anyway.
they're not doing anything.
Yeah, that mouth doesn't have the same receptors you were talking.
Correct.
I didn't know that about the receptors in the nose.
I mean,
and
it's
that's
not
how
receptors. It's just
I
the
know what you're talking
ability of
about.
the turbinates, and if you don't have a nose, you don't have turbinates.
And that's where it grabs it,
Yep.
cools the blood, and it goes to the
Yes.
That's so interesting. Yeah, you're right. Flat-faced dogs, not going to cut it.
No. I mean, I've seen a bulldog whose air conditioning went out in their house. It was super hot. Mom and dad were great bulldog owners. They put the dog on a covered patio with a fan sitting over a cooler of ice to blow cold air at the dog. He still heat stroked. I mean, this was several years ago, and it was like 100 and something degrees out. But they are really not heat tolerant flowers.
Okay, all right. And what about some people who have dogs with really heavy fur will get the shears or whatever and shear them? But you've told me in the past sometimes the fur in certain things can be an insulation factor.
There's a really big, debate about that.
Okay.
And I was taught in veterinary school, not grooming school, that that's actually their insulation. It prevents sunburn. It gives them an area of it's air in there. I mean, it's fur, but there's air insulation in there.
Sure, so it works both ways, yeah.
And it's like your windows that you get now, the R472 or whatever. They're double paned with air in between because that's a really good insulator. And so having that air insulation is protective of them. You take that away and now their skin's getting hot.
Right.
So I'm not a proponent of,
I was going to wonder, what would you recommend?
I had a golden retriever. I never shaved him.
Okay.
I just paid attention to what the temperature was, and if he looked like he was starting to get a little warm, we went inside.
Gotcha. All right. That's good. Keeping with us always, we always touch on this every single time people have their issues with fleas and ticks.
Yeah.
And the ticks are out there already in force.
So strongly.
Yeah,
they are ready to go.
Holy cow. I was just walking around the other day in the backyard and I looked down at my shirt and there was a tick crawling right up, and so they're there. So as always, if you have any questions about the tick treatment, and fleas, there's fantastic ones out there.
There are, absolutely.
The topicals, but I know you're a big advocate as well of the pills, which are fantastic.
Yeah.
And
I just like the fact that they don't wash off. You don't have to worry about having a bath or swimming in the river or the lake, or you don't have to worry about little kids getting their hands in it. It's easy.
Okay. And initially, whenever you buy them, depending on if you're not used to it, you go, well, that's it's not expensive really for what you're getting, and how long they last, and how effective it is as opposed to some over-the-counter powder or stuff. Those things are obsolete now, aren't they?
They really are.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind. There may be a little expensive, but boy, I'll tell you what, it works. I mean, you don't have to worry about that anymore. It is sweet.
Saves you quite the expense from having to treat your dog for tick-borne diseases.
Yeah, or even then also as they come in and then you're petting it and you get the ticks on you, or they get into your house and all of that.
Gross.
Let's take a call from Rolf before we take our first break. Rolf, good morning. Hi, Rolf. Rolf, are you there, Rolf?
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, I just, when you talk about the heat and that, I got a little Shih Tzu, and usually during the winter and fall, he rides with me all the time. But now that it's gotten hotter, even with the air conditioning in the vehicle, he still gets pretty hot. And I don't take him on long rides. But I can take him on a short ride, just going to the store or something and get back home, and he's out. I mean, he's zonked. Yeah. It just wears him out.
Yeah, and I mean,
I think that's something that people ought to be aware of too. It's not like the deal with leaving children in hot cars.
Oh, well, that's a great point.
I mean, that's a great point. So, in the heat of the summer, if I'm going somewhere with my dog, I typically do what I do for myself, which fortunately I have the automatic start car, and I can start it and get the air going and get it cooled down, and then because I don't want to if you don't want to get in that hot car, can you imagine your dog? Go put your fur coat on and your hat and your gloves and everything else and go sit in your car while it cools off. It's hot.
And it takes a while for it to cool off.
It does.
Yeah.
And then of course leaving the dog in cars is just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, I mean, now again, I have the ability to lock my car when it is running, and I have left my dog in the car with it running, with the air on full blast, like it's a freezer in there, and a note on my door that says car's running, air conditioning's on.
Yeah, you got yourself covered there.
You know, she's fine, and she's laying down sleeping. It's not like she's panting or stressed out or anything like that. So if you are going to leave your dog in the car and the engine is running and your air is on, you might want to leave a note.
Leave a note, because people will see it. Now, maybe they'll hear the car running anyway.
Right.
But that's a neat feature to have. I don't have that on my car, and I think that's great.
Know it came. Yes, it's lovely.
It's a good thing to do if you travel with your animal. But he's right. Even just driving with your dog in a car, with the window down, but the sun coming in or whatever, just watch it.
Did you know that 100,000 dogs a year, and I think this might have just been in Indiana,
in one state, die
from riding in the back of pickup trucks?
Because they get thrown?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
I can't.
I see that still sometimes. I'll be driving and you'll see someone and he's got a big truck.
I saw somebody get on the interstate the other day with a huge German Shepherd in the back of the truck, standing up on the wheel well, and I'm just like, I mean, all it takes is for some piece of road debris to flap in front of the driver who swerves to miss it. Dog's gone.
Okay.
It's just, and anyway.
I mean, and that's my point too. Would you do that with your child? No. Why would you do that with your dog?
Those people might.
Maybe they would, and that's criminal. All right, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, we can take more of your phone calls. The number 737-7587, talking to veterinarian Allison Fields about all things animals. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.